talk about the beautiful business of milk today. Yeah. I got milk. Let's talk about milk. Oh yeah, baby, let's talk about the beautiful business of milk today.
This episode of Got Milk is sponsored by Shunya Agritech, the folks revolutionizing cattle nutrition with hydroponic green fodder. Visit their website at shunya.live for more details or download the Shunya app from Play Store or App Store.
Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today we're diving into climate risks in India.
Ooh, it's interesting.
Pulling insights from a World Bank report and some very interesting recent research.
Okay.
It's a massive topic. I mean, we are talking about the world's second most populous country.
Right.
With really diverse landscapes.
Yeah.
And a rapidly changing economy.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is that while 43% of India's population still works in agriculture,
Wow.
its contribution to the overall GDP is actually shrinking. That basically means millions of livelihoods depend on a sector
Right.
that is becoming more and more vulnerable to the climate impacts.
Yeah, and to add to that complexity, India is really pushing for climate action.
Yeah.
Their nationally determined contribution,
Okay.
or NDC as it's called,
Right.
outlines goals to lower emissions and boost resilience in sectors like agriculture,
Yeah.
water, and coastal areas.
Exactly. By
Yeah.
the end of this deep dive, you'll have a clear picture of these risks
Okay.
and why they matter, not just for India, but globally.
So let's start with the basics.
Okay.
India's climate is incredibly diverse, right?
It is.
I mean, you've got everything from the Himalayas to deserts and coastlines.
Yeah.
What makes it so uniquely vulnerable to climate change?
So India's climate is really like a mosaic.
Okay.
6 distinct regions,
Wow.
each with its own vulnerabilities.
Okay.
This means climate change will hit different areas unevenly,
Okay.
creating a very complex set of challenges.
It's like a giant climate puzzle
Yeah,
with different pieces reacting in different ways.
exactly.
So what are we seeing already?
Wow.
How is India's climate changing?
While recorded warming in India has been a bit lower than the global average,
Okay.
projections show it could increase significantly by the end of the century.
Really?
Yeah, we're talking a potential rise of 1.1 degrees Celsius
Okay.
to a massive 4.1 degrees Celsius.
That's a huge jump.
It is.
I imagine dealing with that level of heat would be like trying to run a marathon in a sauna.
Yeah.
But it's not just the rising temperatures, is it?
No, it's
But
not.
we're also seeing more extreme weather,
Right.
like droughts and floods.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
In central India, the number of extreme rainfall events exceeding 150 millimeters per day
Wow.
actually increased by 75%
What?
between 1950 and 2015.
That's like going from a gentle rain to a flash flood overnight.
Exactly.
75%. That's a staggering change.
It is.
You mentioned earlier that predicting rainfall is complex.
It is.
So how are scientists even approaching this problem?
Projecting rainfall, especially the monsoon,
Right.
is a massive challenge.
Okay.
You've got global patterns like El Nino,
Uh-huh.
which happens in the Pacific Ocean,
Right.
but can shift monsoon patterns thousands of miles away in India,
Really?
making rainfall even harder to predict.
Wow.
And then you have the Indian Ocean dipole,
Okay.
another climate pattern influencing the monsoon.
Okay.
It's a complex system.
It's like trying to forecast the weather with a constantly changing set of variables.
Yeah, it is.
But it's not just about the changing weather itself, right?
No.
It's about how prepared people are for these changes.
Exactly. And that's where the Informed Risk Index comes in.
Okay.
It helps us understand not just a country's vulnerability to climate change,
Right.
but also its readiness to improve.
So where does India stand?
So it ranks 32nd out of 191 countries for overall disaster risk, particularly for floods, cyclones, and droughts.
So India is facing a combination of intense climate shifts and significant vulnerability to their impacts.
Absolutely.
It sounds like a perfect storm.
It is.
This high disaster risk must be connected to factors beyond just the weather, right?
That's socioeconomic conditions and how development is planned play a huge role.
Okay.
It's like building a house on a shaky foundation. It won't withstand a strong storm.
Right.
India's vulnerability is further highlighted by the ND Gain Index.
We've talked about the extreme heat and intense rain.
Right.
But I imagine water scarcity is a huge issue as well. India's population depends heavily on consistent water resources.
Yeah.
And with those glaciers shrinking.
Imagine glaciers as giant natural water towers, slowly releasing water during dry periods.
Okay.
Climate change is shrinking these towers, impacting the very source that millions depend on. This means less water flowing during dry seasons
Right.
and increased scarcity, especially in areas prone to drought.
Yeah.
And the impact on agriculture is undeniable given how much of India's farming relies on the monsoon rains.
It's like a chain reaction.
It is.
Climate change melts the glaciers.
Yeah.
Water resources are impacted.
Right.
And that puts food security on the line for millions of people.
Absolutely.
And speaking of food, the World Bank report says that 180 million people in India already live with severe water scarcity.
Wow.
To put that into perspective, that's almost the entire population of Australia.
That's incredible.
And this problem is only expected to worsen.
Right.
The future of water in India is uncertain, but one thing's for sure.
Yeah.
The challenges are mounting. Absolutely.
And the stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah,
So far, we've uncovered a really concerning combination of climate risks,
we have.
intense heat,
Right.
unpredictable monsoons, and dwindling water resources,
Yeah,
all converging on a country with high vulnerability.
exactly.
And we know these risks will have a ripple effect on everything,
Yeah,
from the economy to people's health.
absolutely.
And this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
We haven't even touched on the risks to India's coastal communities,
Right.
which are on the front lines of rising sea levels.
Exactly.
We've talked about the heat and the floods,
Yeah.
but there's another threat looming large for India: rising sea levels.
Right.
Let's explore how climate change is transforming India's coastline.
Okay. India's coastline is extensive, over 8,000 kilometers long.
Wow.
It's home to millions of people bustling with life and culture, but it's also a region facing the full force of climate change.
It's a stark contrast, this beautiful and vibrant coastline up against these immense challenges.
The report paints a picture of rising sea levels and increasingly intense cyclones threatening these coastal communities.
Imagine the sea slowly advancing, claiming land, eroding the coastline,
Right?
and turning freshwater sources salty.
Oh, wow.
This isn't some far-off dystopian future.
Right.
It's happening now.
So the ocean is literally creeping closer and closer to India's doorstep.
It is.
And with cyclones becoming more intense,
Yeah,
the risks are multiplying.
they are.
I imagine these communities must be feeling incredibly vulnerable.
Absolutely. By the 2070s, the report estimates that nearly 18 million people in India could face annual exposure to flooding due to sea level rise.
18 million.
To give you a sense of scale,
Yeah.
that's a population larger than the entire Netherlands.
Wow.
And the impacts go beyond just flooding.
Right.
There's the salinization of freshwater,
Mm-hmm.
the erosion of coastlines, and the destruction of infrastructure.
It's a multifaceted threat that needs urgent attention. Faced with this encroaching ocean, what can India do? It sounds like adapting to these coastal challenges isn't a one-size-fits-all solution.
It's not.
India has such a vast and diverse coastline with a range of ecosystems and communities.
Yeah.
What approaches are being considered to protect these vulnerable areas?
Oh, the report suggests that multidisciplinary approaches are key, including what are called nature-based solutions.
Okay.
This means harnessing the power of nature itself.
Interesting.
Mangrove restoration, dune stabilization,
Okay.
and coral reef protection to act as natural buffers against the rising sea.
So it's about working with nature's strengths instead of fighting against them.
Exactly.
What an interesting concept. And speaking of resilience, I want to shift gears now to another critical sector, agriculture.
Okay.
India's agricultural landscape is vast and diverse,
It is.
providing livelihoods for millions.
Mm-hmm.
How is climate change impacting this crucial sector?
Agriculture is really the backbone of India's economy,
Right.
supporting a massive population. But because it's so intertwined with the climate, it's extremely vulnerable to the changes we're seeing.
Right.
Think about the delicate balance of temperature and rainfall that crops need to thrive. Climate change is disrupting this balance, directly impacting growth water availability, and even leading to increased pest pressure.
So it's not just about growing less food, it's about maybe needing to grow different food altogether.
Yeah.
What does that kind of shift look like for Indian farmers?
You're bringing up an important point.
Yeah.
The report indicates that yields for staple crops like wheat and rice
Yikes.
are projected to decline.
Wow.
And we may see shifts in where these crops can even be grown.
Okay.
Imagine a map of India where the areas suitable for growing certain crops are changing.
Right.
This will require farmers to adapt, but some crops might no longer be viable in their traditional regions, leading to displacement and economic hardship.
Wait, no more bananas? That's a
Mm.
staple for so many.
It is.
What are the alternatives? Can Indian farmers adapt to this?
It's a significant concern.
Yeah.
The report uses the example of bananas potentially disappearing from their current growing regions in India due to rising temperatures. It highlights how climate change is directly impacting food choices and the livelihoods of millions.
Right.
The ability for farmers to adapt will depend on many factors, including access to new crop varieties, technology, and support systems.
It's a massive upheaval.
It is.
And the report doesn't shy away from the human side of these impacts.
No.
Reduced labor productivity due to heat stress,
Uh-huh.
potential increases in food prices. These are real-life consequences
Right.
that will hit the poorest communities the hardest.
Exactly. And those who are already most vulnerable will likely face the most severe consequences.
It's clear that climate change is reshaping India's agricultural landscape in profound ways.
Yes.
From shifting growing zones to potential crop losses, the ripple effects will be felt far and wide.
Yeah.
But the story doesn't end with rural areas.
No, it does.
India's cities, those hubs of economic activity, are facing unique climate challenges as well.
Think about India's urban centers. Concrete, steel, glass, all absorbing and radiating heat.
Yeah.
This is what's known as the urban heat island effect,
Right.
which makes the impacts of rising temperatures even worse.
Okay.
And with the rapid population growth and urbanization happening in India,
Yeah.
the stakes are even higher.
So it's like living in a giant oven, but without the delicious cookies.
Yeah.
But seriously, what can be done to cool down these urban hotspots?
Well,
What are the specific risks that India's cities are facing?
the report points to a number of challenges.
Okay.
Increased heat stress, of course,
Right.
but also flooding from heavier rainfall.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are energy demand surges as people try to stay cool,
Right.
which can strain the power grid.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about the dangerous combination of rising temperatures and air pollution.
Yeah, that's a problem.
It's a complex set of interconnected risks that threaten the health, well-being, and productivity of these urban populations.
It sounds like a real pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Climate change cranking up the heat on an already stressed urban environment.
Exactly.
And the report makes it clear that these impacts won't affect everyone equally.
No, they won't.
The poorest and most marginalized communities are often hit the hardest.
Absolutely. Climate change acts as a threat multiplier, exacerbating existing inequalities.
Right.
Floods, droughts, heat waves.
Yeah.
These events don't discriminate, but those without the resources to cope and adapt will feel their impacts most acutely.
The report cites a particularly striking example.
Yes.
The regions of Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, and West Bengal,
Uh-huh.
which already have low rankings on the Human Development Index,
Right.
are also projected to experience significant increases in flood risk.
Right.
It's a double blow, highlighting the urgent need for targeted support in these areas.
It is.
And the injustice extends beyond just economic vulnerability.
Yeah.
The report also highlights the disproportionate impact of climate change on women and children,
Right.
who often bear a heavier burden during climate disasters.
Yeah.
Think about the limited access to resources, decision-making power, and even information that many women face.
Mm-hmm.
This makes them particularly vulnerable to the shocks of a changing climate.
Absolutely.
It's a sobering reminder that climate change is not just an environmental issue.
Right.
It's a human rights issue.
Exactly.
And the consequences go beyond livelihoods and economic well-being.
Yeah.
The report really dives into the health implications, painting a concerning picture of the potential impacts on India's population.
It paints a very stark picture. Imagine a future where malnutrition becomes even more widespread
Right.
due to climate change's impact on food production, both in terms of quantity and the nutritional value of crops.
Yeah.
This could lead to a greater burden of disease, rising death rates, and a profound human cost.
It's a heartbreaking thought.
It is.
And the report specifically highlights the alarming projections for heat-related deaths.
Yes.
India already experiences extreme heat.
It does.
But as temperatures rise,
Right.
those heat waves are becoming more frequent and dangerous.
The report really brings this point home.
Yeah.
It states that even a small increase of just half a degree Celsius
Okay.
in average summer temperatures
Mm.
could significantly raise the chances of mass casualty events due to heat in India.
Wow.
And considering the much larger temperature increases we're looking at,
Right.
and our different emission scenarios,
Yeah.
the potential consequences are truly dire.
It's as if we're playing a dangerous game, pushing temperatures closer and closer to that 35 degrees Celsius wet bulb temperature threshold.
Right.
That's the point at which the human body simply can't cool itself down effectively,
Yeah.
and prolonged exposure becomes deadly.
It's a stark reminder of how urgently we need to address climate change.
Absolutely.
However, it's not all doom and gloom. The report also highlights India's commitment to climate action, the resilience of its people, and the potential for innovation and adaptation to create a more sustainable future.
So there's still a chance to change course,
Yeah.
to mitigate these risks
Right.
and build a more resilient India. What are some of the potential solutions or strategies being considered?
The report outlines a range of strategies, including policy changes, technological innovations,
Okay.
and community-based adaptation initiatives.
It's a multi-pronged approach that tackles the problem from different angles.
It is.
Can you give us some specific examples? What kind of policy interventions are we talking about?
Imagine policies that incentivize renewable energy, promote water conservation,
Okay.
and encourage climate-smart agriculture.
So it's about creating a system that makes sustainability easier and more rewarding.
Exactly.
Whether you're an individual, a business,
Right.
or a whole industry.
Yeah.
But it's not just about top-down solutions, right?
No.
You mentioned community-based adaptation. What does that look like in practice?
That's where we see local communities empowered to take ownership of the climate resilience.
Okay.
Picture initiatives like rainwater harvesting,
Right.
mangrove restoration along the coasts, and early warning systems for extreme weather events.
It's about recognizing that the people closest to the impacts of climate change
Yeah,
often have the most innovative and practical solutions.
they do.
It seems like technology also has a big role to play in addressing these challenges.
Absolutely. Think about things like climate-resilient infrastructure,
Okay.
the development of drought-resistant crops, and more advanced weather forecasting systems.
better data.
These technological innovations can help reduce risks, enhance adaptive capacity, and contribute to a more climate-proof future.
It sounds like it's going to take this combination of policy community action and technological innovation to pave the way for a more resilient India.
I think so.
But it's not just about reacting to the risks, it's about seizing the opportunities that come with tackling this challenge head on, right?
Precisely the transition to a low-carbon economy presents a real chance for India to leapfrog ahead. This could mean creating green jobs, fostering innovation,
Right.
and ultimately building a more sustainable and equitable society.
So climate action isn't just about avoiding disaster, it's about building a better future.
Exactly.
We've covered so much in this deep dive, from the Himalayas to the coasts,
Yeah.
from droughts to floods, and
Yeah.
from policy solutions to cutting-edge technology. It's been an eye-opening look at a complex issue.
It has.
As we wrap up, what would you say is the key takeaway from all of this?
The key takeaway is this: climate change is one of the biggest challenges we face.
Right.
And vulnerable regions like India are feeling its effects most acutely.
Yeah.
But even amidst these challenges, there is hope.
Mm.
By taking a multifaceted approach, fostering collaboration,
Right.
and harnessing the power of innovation, we can work towards a more resilient and sustainable future for India and for the entire world.
It's a call to action reminding us that we all have a role to play in shaping a climate-resilient future.
Absolutely.
Given everything we've discussed, I'm curious, what actions could individuals, communities, and governments take to mitigate these risks and build that more resilient future for India? It's something to think about.
That's the question we all need to grapple with.
Yeah.
There's no single answer, but exploring the possibilities is crucial.
Absolutely. Well, we encourage all of you listening to learn more, stay engaged in the conversation about climate change, and consider your own role in creating a more sustainable future for India and for the world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
I got milk.